everybody. My name is Pam Royster. I'm the Director of Post-Secondary Planning in the Office of Transition Readiness, and I'm going to be spending a little time talking to you today about early post-secondary learning opportunities and really kind of emphasizing some of the access and success inequities that we have, and talking with you about ways we can solve those, and also make sure that we are helping our students make really good choices about those learning opportunities. So I'm going to actually stop my webcam and move on to the next slide, which is where we're going to talk about our learning outcomes today. So as we were planning this, a lot of things happened this summer. And so I have a feeling that there will have been a big announcement and discussion about this. So hopefully this is well timed for you. I also realize I'm jam packing a lot of stuff into a video, and thanks to the power of pause, right? Like, you can go back and revisit this and chunk it out for yourself later. But if we need to revisit this or provide some materials, be kind of thinking of that as we're going through things, because this is going to be brand new for a lot of you. It's not for some of you, but there, I'll get to what I'm talking about, but there's a lot of nuances to this work, and we're lucky in the state of Kentucky because we have those nuances, which is a weird thing to think about. But I'm going to talk a little bit about why this is important, which is going to be a little redundant, I have a feeling, by the time you see this. The data, how you can understand what's going on in your building. I'm going to use the district as an example for that and show you how to run some reports and understand what you're looking at in those reports. Really thinking about what you need to be working on in your school, and not just you who's watching this video, but your racial equity team, your teachers, your instructional folks, your principal. Like, how can we help people looking at this data, and what steps do we need to take in our building? Because each of you are in a different situation when it comes to early post-secondary learning opportunities. Going to talk about some new options that are, again, probably going to be a little redundant, so I might not spend a whole lot of time with those. What I really want to spend a lot of time on is talking about the Kentucky transfer policy and how that impacts the types of courses students take, and then kind of launch you into thinking about your next steps. But before I go any further, let me start by defining what we mean when we talk about early post-secondary learning opportunities. These are your advanced placement if you're an IB school, an International Baccalaureate school, or a Cambridge International Certificate school. They're also all of your dual credit classes, whether they're academic or CTE. All of those we kind of lump together into this EPLO category, or some people call it advanced learning. I'm a little I'm not really a big fan of that term because it makes it sound like you have to be super smart or gifted and talented. And if our end goal, getting into kind of the next slide here, if our end goal is that a lot more of our kids are seeking post-secondary credentialing, whether that's a certificate, a diploma, or a degree, then these should be opportunities available for every kid. And it should be every kid's goal to meet that placement benchmark, whatever it might be, for their program and their pathway. But that this should be 100% of our seniors graduate with one of these experiences under their belt. Yeah, that's a BHAG, one of those big, hairy, audacious goals. But unless we start thinking that way, we can't break some of the barriers that, quite frankly, sometimes we put up ourselves in front of kids. But this is important, obviously, because of our three-pillar work. With at the center of that is that racial equity. When we start looking at some of the numbers, it'll become very clear that we do not have equitable access to these programmings. And I realize that some of that is long-standing, and some of that's not necessarily related to the doors being open to these things, but the experiences that students may or may not have. But quite frankly, that's wrong, and we need to do better. So I'm not trying to navel gaze and spend too much time in the past, but really trying to be focused on data and moving forward. Being able to offer these to students and having more success for all students in the EPLO category also builds your climate and culture, your culture of college going and post-secondary credentialing. And it also helps kids build their backpack of success skills. And they're building there so that they can be more successful in those EPLO opportunities. So lots of ties to our three pillars work. So the first thing that you will need to know as you start to think about and tackle these challenges is, what does your data look like? KDE publishes 2 reports in Infinite Campus, which if you go to Infinite Campus Kentucky State Reporting and then open up the KDE reports, all counselors should have access to run the A Advanced coursework and the Advanced Courses and Exams reports. I'm going to focus today on this A Advanced coursework course. I don't know why. I guess they put the A there so that it comes first. Um, or distinguish it from the other one. I don't really know. But there's 2 different ways you can run this report. There's a detailed report, which returns information from students taking dual credit, advanced placement, IB, and Cambridge courses, along with their demographic courses, and the courses are identified. They're pulling basically everything that has either dual DC, AP, IB, or ACE in that difficulty level. The detail report contains personally identifiable information, so you need to protect that with all the FERPA stuff that goes along with that. The aggregate report is the one I'm going to show you today, and that pulls information and has some programming behind it that helps you look at your population, and it's not duplicated, it's deduplicated, so that students... Okay, sorry if that was a rough transition. I had to splice this back into the presentation because I need to stick to high level. So high level overview of this access and opportunity report that's in the KDE reporting section. In essence, when you're looking at this report, there are 2 different ways to look at your data. All of these special populations, they break down between dual credit, APIB Cambridge. This total advanced coursework, you'll notice this plus this doesn't equal that, right? So this is a non-duplicated count. All of them are, but this is a non-duplicated account. So if a kid's in an AP class and a dual credit class, they're only still counted once in this total, right? So we're going to look at these different numbers as compared to your total enrollment. This should be the same as this. If you're talking about a program that looks like your overall population, right? So we can see, just using male and female, that of the dual credit kiddos, 62%, 63% of your kiddos are females in the district and 37%. Well, we're about 50-50 when it comes to total enrollment. So we are overprescribed in dual credit, or underprescribed if you want to look at males, right? The females dominate in dual credit. It's a little less severe in AP, but still there is overrepresentation of females and underrepresentation of males in our advanced coursework. So that first set of 4 columns relate to each other. Let's look at another example. Of the dual credit classes, 29% of dual credit students are African American, identify as African American, but in our overall population in JCPS, almost 37% of our students. So we are underprescribed in dual credit. It's even worse in AP classes. And if you look at total coursework, we are way behind in representation of African American students and early post-secondary learning opportunities. The other way to look at this data, I'm not saying one's better than the other, but is the overall enrollment of the subpopulation. It kind of tells you the same thing, but if 29%, almost 30% of our students are in at least one EPLO, then, and we were representative of the special populations, then all of these numbers should be close to 30%. Highlights the same thing, but what this allows you to do is, especially if you're looking at race and ethnicity, you can see in our district that the majority of our advanced coursework students are actually Asian students, with 60% of the students taking are Asian. Almost 60% of the Asians in our total population are taking a dual credit or AP class. So this is the representation of the total advanced coursework of that specific population. So this is a good entry-level report to be able to look at access to your coursework. Now, you may look at your data and say, oh, okay, we don't really have an access issue, which I think you could always have more kids if the number is 30%, but maybe you're at one of the few schools where these numbers are closer to 70 or 80%, right? Maybe it's success that you need to look at, and that's where you need to look at the advanced coursework and exam report. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of those barriers that I know that are going through all of your heads. There are things that we can do to open access up, and some of them you can do right now, and some of them you're going to have to plan for a spring implementation or a fall 2022. Get the right year there. And some of it is longer term planning, but this is the good work. This is good trouble, right? So the number one thing that I hear people talking about is, well, our kids aren't ready. They're either not ready on some placement expectation that's put on at the post-secondary, or they're just like not ready maturity wise or time management skills or whatever executive function you want to insert there, that kids just aren't ready. There's a couple things that we can think about putting in place and consider based on your own population, right? I know a lot of you have the Accelerate to College program. That course, it's an English, right now it's a junior English class. It's full year. It's aligned with the developmental standards at the post-second at Jefferson at JCTC. But it also embeds a lot of those types of executive functions, time management, what it really means to be a college student, as well as the confidence building that a lot of our kids need to be successful, and specifically in a dual credit class. So I can highly recommend buying into that program and getting your teachers trained so that you can offer the A to C junior English or the A to C math, which is senior year, fall of the senior year. Both of those we have a commitment from Jefferson to provide on the other end after they finish their A to C English or math course, a facilitated online either English 101 or one of the math classes, so that we can remove that barrier of your teacher not being credentialed to teach. So this is an actual JCTC that's delivering it asynchronously on an online platform, but you have your teacher in there to be able to provide instructional supports to students and, quite frankly, to make sure they're kind of sticking on time. There's some after-school support programs. There are some Avid-like programs that, again, they help build those executive functions that kids need to be able to be successful in a college class or a college equivalent class. And then we have those Evolve 502 centers that are learning centers that are popping up across the city that are able to provide some additional supports for students. It's really just making sure, and as we improve the quality of our instruction, is getting those ACT scores back up. We're in a, I guess you could say, lucky time that because of COVID, we've had less access to testing. So some of those placement and prerequisite requirements have flipped to a GPA requirement and not a test score. So um, new access to students is going to be available. I know a lot of people think about their teaching staff. A lot of you have a lot of baby teachers. They're in their first, second, third year of teaching. They may or may not have either the graduate credit hours necessary. You have to have 18 graduate credit hours for a general education course in your subject area. Most of our teachers don't have that. And even for AP, if you go to training, still takes sometimes 1, 2, 3 years to get into the groove of being a good AP teacher. So, what are some things that you can do? Well, we've got a lot of people sending kids onto a college campus. That's a little problematic because of the A, time it takes to get to a college campus, and B, how you get to the college campus. All of the students at JCTC do get TARC passes as a part of their tuition, and it's a deal they have with TARC. But as we all know, that TARC routes are shrinking, and that's not always a reliable option for a lot of our kiddos. We can do those facilitated online section. That does require some pre-planning, but JCTCs have been a really good partner to try to help connect our teachers with their instructors and develop this facilitated online option. And then there's the online only option that a kid can take one-off classes. That removes the barrier of transportation, but it does still provide some challenges with books and materials and having access to technology, which hopefully we're getting over that hump a little bit, and we're working on some budget requests to help students with those ancillary costs. And sometimes we just get in our own way. It's time to look at some of your policies, and maybe it's not policies, it's just how you operate in your building and things that you might do that are putting up barriers for students. And sometimes those barriers you feel like are there for a reason, because you might have limited seats. You might have one teacher who can only have 2 sections of whatever AP class or dual credit class, and so you have to limit it to 60 kids. You might need to make an argument, well, if there's more kids who need it and are qualified and ready, then we need to take a look at our master schedule. So, being mindful of the things that we put in our own way, because we've always done it that way, or because of maybe justified or not obstacles that we have in front of us. So, what's really important in the current landscape in the state of Kentucky, which is, again, where the vast majority of our JCPS students, I know some of you have a lot of students that travel out of state, but if you look at the data, most kids in JCPS stay in state. We have a unified policy in our state with our public universities. Again, a lot of our folks go. And so what I'm showing you here, which is probably too small for you to see, so I'll make it a little bit bigger. We have a unified policy on how AP exams are accepted at all of our public universities. And this document is available on the CPE website, and we are trying to get our dual credit website updated with some of these links. But this is how things transfer. Let's get into chemistry here. So science and math at KCTCS, which includes Jefferson, you get a 3, 4, or 5. You get biology 112. If you look at UK, if you get different courses based on the score that you get. So this just is helpful on the front end to know specifically for AP, and there's also CLEP at the bottom, what transfers where. Now, most of you also know that is for the general university or college. If you are, for example, trying to get into the speed school, they're not going to accept your calculus the same way that the arts and sciences folks will. So even though it says the university accepts it, there may be specific college-based requirements at those universities. So it's always good to just check with the post-secondary college. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about is this, also from the Council on Post-Secondary Education, is the statewide General Education Corps. So this came about in the fall of 2012, so it's been around a while, but it's taken the colleges and universities a little bit to transition to this. And I would say the 17, 18, 18, 19 kind of academic years are when this kind of hit full force and became the standard operating practice at our Kentucky public colleges and universities. What they've done is they have pared down, in a sense, the general education requirements to about, I think it's a minimum of 30 to 39 credits that that students need to fulfill the general education requirements at Kentucky State colleges and universities. And you can see they're divided into these categories. And these should look familiar because these are the words that we use when we talk about transition readiness. So we kind of lump that communications, arts and humanities, social behavior sciences into one bucket. That's for dual credit and AP, right, for transition readiness, and then the quantitative reasoning, which is math, and natural sciences into another bucket. And depending on whether the kid is in a arts or a sciences pathway or degree track at the university, it depends on these numbers of hours. And what each of these categories comes with is learning outcomes. And that's all detailed into this 13-page policy. And I'm not going to go over every single one of those things. What I'm hoping you are seeing here is that usually it's 6 to 9 hours of written and oral communications. So almost everybody in their gen ed requirements has English, something like an English 101, 102, and an oral communications class. Boom, 9 credits. There's 3 to 6 hours of college algebra or beyond that's required. Arts and humanities, 6 to 9 hours. That's 2 to 3 classes in the arts and humanities. Natural sciences, 3 to 7 hours. Again, 1 or 2 classes. And social behaviors and social and behavioral sciences is also 6 to 9, which is usually only 3 classes. Now, how they break up the social behavior sciences and arts and humanities is college dependent. I'm going to show you a couple of resources to help you figure these things out. But the takeaway from all of this is that more is not always better. In a lot of our schools, we are really heavy on offerings in the social behavior sciences. You do AHUG, the human geography, you do APUSH, the U.S. history, you do world history, and then you offer maybe psychology or something like that. You've already exceeded what most of our colleges accept for social behavior sciences if kids are taking all 4 courses in that sequence. Now, you might find that some schools split up that arts and humanities between arts and heritage, which is another word for history to kind of get around some of those things. But every school is different and there are nuances to this. So it's really important that as kids are picking out these classes to take, that they're being mindful of their graduation requirements and being mindful of how these are going to transfer, because the whole point of these early post-secondary learning opportunities is to get a head start. So what we try to do to help people with that, hi everybody, stop that, is publish our dual credit eligible courses based on how they apply at that institution to the gen ed requirements. So as we looked at before, we have written and oral communication. Well, here are the 2 classes and a choice of classes that we offer to meet the oral communication. But they only need 3 credits in it, so they shouldn't be taking multiple oral communications class unless they're going to be a communications major, right? Same thing with arts and humanities. Why are you not cooperating? The arts and humanities, At KCTCS, they break that into heritage, which is like history, and humanities. You see, they only need one history class to meet their heritage arts and sciences requirements, and they need one arts and humanities class. So even though they need potentially a whole thing of world civ, like if they need, we teach US history from 1865. So that's really the class that they would want to take to replace not only their US history credit, but also take care of their heritage. They don't need to take both, right? So it's the alignment to what's in our catalog and what's a graduation requirement and what's going to help them move forward in meeting their general education requirements. We try to publish them so that's very clear to you as a counselor. Might not make as much sense to a student or family without somebody explaining it to them. And you might not have realized that that's what we were doing. So as you're advising students, it's important that you understand that every single one of our Kentucky public colleges and universities has some sort of gen ed requirements. It usually has some catchy name that has core in the title or references some important thing about their college. So it's the Cardinal Core program at the University of Louisville. And this details what is required for them in their qualitative core. This is the gen ed requirements. And the beautiful part of this is that there are 3 different ways to package this for kids to transfer. I don't want to get into all those details. There's like an A, B, and a C, like C being the full package. But what we want to make sure is that kids are working their way through these 31 credits, and they're doing it smart, and they're not doing all in the diversity category or all in the arts and humanities. I think I'm belaboring this point. But here it is the explanation. And then when you come down here, you can go see the classes that are listed. And so we've tried to take the hard part out of this. We have gone through this list of Cardinal Core classes with the University of Louisville, found the things that are aligned with Kentucky content, and we have a document very similar to this one for the University of Louisville. We've done it for Bellarmine. At almost all of our partners, we have one of these documents. So that we've done the hard part about looking to see if it's a Cardinal Core. Now, the challenge is if you take a class at Jefferson, but you end up going to Western, making sure that it transfers, for example, to Western in their Colonnade program. Probably didn't say that right. But you can see that they have their own set of requirements. They use different words. That's the 3 pathways that I was kind of talking about. But they still break it down in the same kind of numbers so that you can see what those programs are. UK, it's the UK core. Hi again. I can't decide if I'm going to be on or not. And this details their learning outcomes. And of course, they have to use different words, but it's the same kind of concepts. Everyone also has their own individual placement policies. That's from that summary form, and how it meets the UK core areas. Again, just to be transparent and clear with students and families. So the point of all this, again, more is not always better. We want kids making smart choices about what classes they're taking so that they're actually helping themselves instead of hurting themselves in the long run. Because the last thing we want a kid to do is show up to college and have all these social behavior. I know the social studies teacher's going to kill me, but having all these social behavior science classes and boom, automatically on academic probation because they're not making satisfactory academic progress. And now their financial aid's in jeopardy, right? So it's really important that we're helping our students make these kinds of decisions. And it unfortunately takes a lot of time and conversation to get to the right plan. But I know you're up for it. And I know that we're going to wake up next year and we're going to be further down the road with access and success for students in early post-secondary learning opportunities. Hope you've been using the live chat and hope you've been thinking about what resources you might need to be able to better counsel your students and work with them and make sure that they're on the right path. So just let me know, and thanks for listening.